How did Judas die? Judas, the traitor and the betrayer of Jesus. Some people claim that the Bible, the New Testament in particular, has contradictions in relation to how Judas Iscariot died. Because in Matthew 27, 3-5, it says that he went and hung himself. While in Acts 1, 16-19 states that he fell and has had his bowels gushed out. Actually, how did Judas die? Do these contradict each other? When we study church history and we study the early church fathers were knowledgeable more than we can understand. And they studied the Bible and they studied the biblical narrative deeply. And they had an opinion of all these things. And actually, because they were closer in history, they had traditions, they had stories that were orally transferred from one generation to another. In relation to this story, it's very interesting that in the 4th century, Apollinaris of Laodicaea mentioned that Papias, who was a disciple of John, in his 4th book of the 5 books that he has written, Exposition of the sayings of the Lord, he claims that Judas actually did not die, not of hanging himself, nor when after he hung himself, he fell without dying. He fell on a rock and had his bowels gushed out. Actually, Papias says that Judas lived for a period after that, and he suffered from a disgusting way of living where he used to smell, his bowels were inflamed, and he looked ugly, he smelled ugly, and he lived for a period of time. Even the house where he was, after he died, the house smelled that people wouldn't even pass by that house because of the terrible smell that came out of the house. We don't know how accurate this story is. Papias does mention it, and Papias was much closer to the disciples. He was a disciple of John, the apostle, and he lived closer to the apostolic age. We have no reason to defy his narrative or to doubt it. Therefore, there is nothing contradictory between the two stories. Even if he died actually through hanging himself, well, it's very simple. He hung himself. He didn't die from the hanging, but maybe a tree branch broke and he hit himself to a rock and had his gushes or his bowels gushed out. The thing is that we cannot have this conspiracy, and the difference in the story of the different angle describing the story does not mean contradiction. We just need to know and to see things from the different sides where each person is describing part of the story, complementing each other rather than contradicting each other.